Hi, this is Mike Brown, owner of Death Wish Coffee Company. Welcome to Fueled by Deathcast.
I love Jeff, but sweet and hot. Whoop, Mr. Motorama coffee spot.
Death Wish Coffee presents Fueled by Deathcast, the world's strongest podcast. With your hosts, the incredible Jeff and the amazing D-Man.
Welcome, everybody, to episode number 18 of Fueled by Deathcast. As always, I am the incredible Jeff.
And I'm still afraid of space.
Says amazing D-Man. And the reason why he says that is we are incredibly honored to have our special guest this week be none other than the artistic astronaut, Nicole Stott. She's called that, actually, because she was the first astronaut to ever paint in space at the International Space Station.
Yeah, this was an amazing interview, and I'm really glad we got to get her on episode number 18.
It was incredible, and that'll be coming up later in the show. As always, I want to thank the incomparable Brock Powell.
I know what incomparable means now.
Yes, you do. Brock Powell, BrockVox.com. He is an incredible voice actor who does all of the voices you hear on this podcast, as well as countless other things, and you can go check them out on the interwebs.
Including the Kool-Aid Man.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And New York City Podfest. If you're listening to this actually on Sunday, April 9th, we're there.
Yeah, we're packing our bags as we're talking. We're literally just packing our bags and talking and doing podcasts at the same time. But
I'm so excited.
Yeah,
can't wait.
It's gonna be cool.
It's going to be down in Brooklyn at the Bell House. We have special guest comedian Kevin Bartini. And that will replay on our episode next week. Episode number 19 will be the replay of that, along with some fun stuff we'll add to it.
Secret code unlocked. Discount of death.
This week, if you type in the word space in your discount code spot, you will get 20% off an AeroPress.
The whole bundle. That's not just the AeroPress. It also comes with a pound of delicious coffee as well.
And the reason why, because it sounds like it comes from space, right?
Yeah, AeroPress. It kind of sounds like a space vehicle.
Yeah,
maybe,
a little
or
bit.
Something,
Good enough. Well, we're giving you 20% off, which is a huge discount. And
would you say it's out of this world?
Oh, stop. Anyways, I'll give you a little insight. We're not gonna have any more after this.
So get them while you can.
Yeah, and there's only a few left, and we figured whatever's left, we're gonna give you guys a discount. So there it is. Just type in the word space, SPACE, and you will get that 20% discount.
And that runs all the way till next Wednesday, April 12th. So you got a whole week to do that and jump on that awesome discount.
Science!
This week, Dustin, we got something really fun for science, and I think you're not going to be scared for once.
I don't know. That's probably not. That's probably not possible.
We have our special guest, who you're going to hear later on in this episode. Astronaut Nicole Stott is with us, and the reason why is because I'm bringing up recently, March 30th. There was a very, very cool thing that happened in space, another spacewalk on the International Space Station. And I thought it was really cool to have you as a part of this today, Nicole, because you actually did this as well, right? You did a couple spacewalks while you were up there.
I did only one spacewalk, which I can tell you, it's like, the number of times you go to space, it's never enough.
Right.
You want
Yeah.
And, did one and wish that I had done another, because I think then maybe my brain would have remembered more of the experience, but only one.
How long were you out on that spacewalk?
That one, it was a little over 6.5 hours.
Wow. And you were doing like the same thing that they were doing, like maintenance on the space station, I believe?
We were. There was a mix of maintenance, and there was, one of the coolest things I got to do on the spacewalk was ride on the end of the big robotic arm, like this big long path on the big robotic arm, hanging onto this box that on the ground would have weighed, I don't know, 800 pounds or something, but up there you can just do, whatever you want with it, and rode on the arm with that. And that was some science experiments that we had outside of the station that were attached to the outside of the station, and they needed to bring them back to Earth. So we were taking it from the station down into the space shuttle. But yeah, most spacewalks are a mix of assembly, building the station, or maintenance, or bringing science back to Earth.
What were they doing yesterday in particular, Jeff?
They're getting it ready for they're fitting more couplings and different things on it to get it ready for new docking things.
Like an upgrade.
Yeah,
upgrade
and one of the things that happened yesterday, actually, depending on when you're listening to this, on March 30th, during that spacewalk, was a part of cloth shielding actually floated off. And everything is tethered down, like you're tethered down, Nicole, like you were saying on the big arm and all that stuff. Is it scary? Like when
you
things
said I wasn't going to be scared, Jeff.
Kind of float away.
So scared right now.
Because I mean, you're using
gravity.
You're using tools and you're using like all these different things. Everything must be tethered to you, right? Like, was there ever moments for you where things kind of like almost floated off? Like, is it? I'm just so curious about stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't remember a moment where things almost floated off. It is really easy for that to happen, though.
Yeah.
And not so much with your person. I think there's a diligence that very deliberate attention to that when you're outside with your own tethers. And we have a lifeline that we call our safety tether that goes back to a main anchor point, and then whenever you get to a particular location, just like imagine if you were rock climbing, you kind of, local tether yourself so you can't get any further than 4 feet away from the structure and that kind of thing. So very deliberate there. But there is real opportunity for little pieces and tools to be liberated from their tether for a number of different reasons. And no crew member wants that to happen.
No, definitely not.
They don't want that to happen. But it's kind of an accepted part of that work is that there is the possibility of that happening. And, just unfortunately they experienced that yesterday, but they recovered beautifully.
Oh
with
yeah.
it,
They MacGyvered a way out of it. And
yeah.
it was incredible. I was watching some of it live. That's what's so cool about living in the future that we live in now is like I can watch astronauts in space working on the space station
on Facebook.
It's incredible.
Facebook Live. Yeah,
it's
so
absolutely
weird.
Incredible. The other question I wanted to ask you: what is the process like? You're in the space station and you're going to go out on a spacewalk, so you have to get in your suit and get out there. Like, what is that process like? Does it take a long time to get?
What theme music is playing when this is happening?
Right.
There is always music. I wish I could remember what music was playing when we were suiting up. Somebody's always got music going on the station. It's again, a very deliberate, scripted process to go out the door. And there's communication with our ground team. They're working along right beside us on the checklist for any of the people that are helping get the crew members that are going outside ready to go out. But it works beautifully. It's scripted so nicely that if you do miss something, you catch it down the way. It's really a great process. But it takes a while. I mean, it's a few hours of getting ready to go out. And these days we do something called an exercise protocol before going out the door, where before you get in the suit, you actually get on an oxygen mask and you ride the bike at the bike at a certain level for a while, and that's to help get rid of that nitrogen in your body. You want to prevent the bends from happening, just like you would if you were going out on an extended dive.
Wow.
And so it used to be that we would sleep overnight in the airlock at a reduced pressure to help get that nitrogen out of your body.
Oh.
But this is where it's so neat. I mean, how technology and what we know about our bodies, what we've learned on the ground from deep sea diving kinds of things, and what we know from doing earlier spacewalks, we've developed easier techniques for ridding ourselves of that nitrogen in our body to make it easier to get out the door too. And but it's a process, and you want it to be a process because you want all of the ceiling surfaces to be holding the pressure in the suit, and you want it to work when you go outside.
In my line of work, I feel like we put in procedures because we've kind of messed it up already. I mean, does that happen for you guys where it's like, oh,
this didn't work?
That was a mistake. We probably should put a procedure in process so we don't do that again.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good thing. I mean, there's the good and the bad of that. There's the good in it that you should very deliberately be learning from the lessons that you've had before. You know, you shouldn't have to make that mistake again. And so we do try, as much as we can to incorporate those lessons learned. What you don't want to do is bog yourself down with so much other procedural stuff that it opens up new opportunities for making mistakes. So there's a really, really interesting balance there.
Awesome. The final question is, we talked about getting out there, but you're out in space, you said, for 6 hours or whatever. When you come back into the space station, is it like an acclimation process? Like, does it take your body a little bit, is it different from being in space to being back in the space station, or is it kind of like an easy transition?
It really is a pretty easy transition. I think once you get back in the airlock, there's the procedures. I mean, it's all very scripted and checklisted again, to bring you back in. You don't want to hurt yourself, pulling the helmet off and all of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's much quicker than going out the door. And it's kind of like, when you really work hard at anything and you finally get to get all the equipment off, you get to, think about just chilling and relaxing afterwards. That's where it's just kind of this wind down, because when you're out on a spacewalk, it's, there is the physical aspect of it. There's the, wow, look, I am outside in my own little spaceship, really. Yeah. I've got my own little visor, it's just between this and between me and, 250 miles below me, that beautiful planet again. That, by the way, is a distraction. So you got to kind of look away from that.
Wow.
Or you'd just be looking at that the whole time.
Mesmerizing.
Doing your job.
Yeah.
And it's there's kind of a mental, you're working hard mentally when you're out there too.
Yeah.
And so it is, you come back in, you've successfully gotten your work done, and
you're exhausted probably, right?
You want one of these.
Yeah.
A cup of coffee.
You want to chill a little bit. Yeah.
Do you drink coffee in space?
Yes, you do.
Oh. How do we get Death Wish to space?
You know what? Let's talk about that. I think people would love it.
Awesome.
So.
Great. I am so into that.
Awesome.
Jeff and I and you will be responsible for putting Death Wish in space. That's amazing.
It.
Well, this was officially the coolest science segment we've ever had. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you. Thanks for the interest.
What fuels you?
So we have an incredible conversation with Nicole coming up about her time in space and what it means to be an astronaut. And one of the things she talked about, which I thought was just so inspiring, was the ideal of teamwork, but not just of the idea of it, but to really surround yourself with people you can count on, people you can trust. And that just makes the achieving of your goals that much easier, that much more beneficial.
Yeah, when she talked about it, it really spoke volumes how, she's out there, not even on the edge of the world, on the edge of the universe, kind of out in space. And the only thing saving her from just shooting out into nothingness is her team. And she has such trust in the engineers who put together the equipment, down to, the scientists on the ground coming up with equations. She has so much trust in her team that she's not even worried being out there in the middle of nowhere. That's insane.
It is. And, and when we talk about teamwork at Death Wish Coffee, it's widely known we're a small business. There's 20 plus of us, When you're talking about NASA, it's a small village.
Yeah.
Her team is not just the 6 other astronauts that she's going to the space station on the Space Shuttle. She actually flew on the Space Shuttle. But, it is everybody in ground control. It's everybody who's already up in space. It's everybody across the world who's helping out on this, and it's like... And one of the things she was talking about was, if you surround yourself with people who have a good personality and want to actually be there, be present in what they're doing, it just makes the workday, the workflow that much easier, and you can trust everything that's happening around you.
Yeah, and I'm sure with a team that NASA provides, it's the best of the best. And what that means is exactly that. They want to be there. They want to make a difference. They are making a difference. And I think that's a big, important part of a team. And I think why Death Wish finds so much success is that we all love being here.
Yes.
We all love doing what we do. And we all trust each other. And it creates this really great team environment. And if you can create that in your life, you will find success wherever you go.
Totally.
Period.
Totally, and it's something that, isn't really thought about a lot, but the people you surround yourself with, that's something that you can physically choose to do.
Yeah.
You can either cut people out of your life, your work environment or your hobby environment, or bring people into that, and that's a choice that you have.
How many times have you and I had to do that where it's like, we can't have this person around anymore.
Right.
And even though I like them, they have a good heart, but it can be damaging to your surroundings, the people you choose to be around you if they're not quality people.
Right. And conversely, it can be completely beneficial to your goals and the goals of the group that you're working with if those people are exceeding expectations.
Yeah.
And it's so inspiring, and you'll hear much more about this later on in the episode. It's that time again, our new favorite segment, the community shout out. And Dustin, I could not stop laughing this week. So I'm just going to say it. Amy Smith from the Death Wish community out there, you get the shout out because, we see all you guys out there, and what we love is when you take it upon yourself to make memes or make organic posts about this podcast, because it helps. Because it helps get the visibility of our little podcast out to the masses.
Can you explain to our listeners what you saw?
Well, there's this.
I
can't really. There's this meme that's been going around a little bit of some. I believe it started with Bob Ross. Bob Ross painting a picture, but people were photoshopping the picture he was painting.
Yeah.
And now people are photoshopping people in place of Bob Ross, and then also the picture that they're painting. And it turned out that Amy made this hilarious meme of Prince, the formerly known as Prince, painting a picture.
Formerly known as Prince.
Painting a picture of Dustin and I, and I'm still chuckling about it, and it warmed my heart.
She made a great one of our fearless leader,
Yes.
Mike Brown, as well. That was pretty good.
That was pretty excellent. So I tip my hat to you, Amy, because it just put a smile on my face all week.
And that's what life is all about. You got to be laughing and smiling just about every day. And that definitely made our day. Thank you very much, Amy.
Yeah, thank you. And we're doing something we haven't done in a little bit. Everybody get ready. You might have heard about this, but it's real. We're doing another month-long contest.
And usually we do this with our personal mug collections.
Yeah, we did that last time with yours, and that worked out really well. Somebody got one of your own mugs.
Yeah, which is awesome. And we were planning to do that again, but we got something even better. And we went to John Swedish, our mad scientist.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of looking at possibly developing a creamer decanter, a little.
You might have seen it teased on Instagram a couple weeks back. But
and you even saw Deneen maybe making a few extra, but we had some prototypes made, and you might have seen them. We have a Lucky Larry creamer prototype. We have the 2016 Valentine's Day mug, and we have the Mardi Gras mug from 2016 as well.
It's those emblems on the little decanters that we had made from Deneen.
We're gonna give away all three of those.
Yeah, and these are one of a kind.
We're not making those.
Right.
Period.
Yep.
These are we only made, I think, 2 of each.
Yep.
And so John was nice enough to lend us these 3 to give away to you guys.
Yeah, and the grand prize winner will get the Lucky Larry.
Yep. At second place, we'll win the Mardi Gras creamer decanter.
Yep. And then the third place will win the 2016 Valentine's. But I mean, anybody who wins, there's going to be 3 winners.
Tell them how they win, Jeff.
You're all walking away. All you got to do is go on over to deathwishcoffee.com/deathcast, where this podcast lives, over on the Death Wish Coffee page. And on that page, there'll be an entry form. All you got to do is type in your email address. Boom, you're entered.
But there's more ways they can win, Jeff.
And as soon as you type in your email address, you're going to see a bunch more ways that you can earn extra points towards being able to win one of these awesome decanters. And that's going to include following us on social media, retweeting tweets, tweeting different tweets, using hashtags, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you'll have multiple chances and you can do this daily.
Yes. It's all laid out for you in the entry form. Some of them are daily, some of them are weekly. Every week, the tweet will change to reflect this contest, and this is going to run until April 30th.
This is crazy. You're the only one that's going to have this.
Yes, and
this is the only way to get it.
Yeah, and we're going to announce the winners, all 3 winners we're going to announce on the May 4th podcast episode. So, like I said, you have a whole month to keep entering, keep doing that. And as always, keep sharing the podcast, keep liking it, keep telling your friends on social media. And we're going to choose 3 lucky winners. We're very excited.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah, I can't wait either.
The Death Wish Death List.
This week, we lost Ikutaro Kakihashi. He was 87 years old, and he was an engineer and an entrepreneur. He actually is the founder of Ace Tone and the Roland Corporation. What's very interesting about his life is back in the 1950s, he actually started working on...
Is that instruments?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. He started working on repairing electronic organs back in the 50s. And by the time he was 28, he decided to devote himself in the pursuit of creating the perfect electronic musical instrument.
That's so cool.
So by 1964, he created a hand-operated electronic drum, and that was actually put into mass production by 1967 as one of the first ever drum machines.
Oh, crazy.
Now, this was then later
So this guy invented techno.
Basically. This was later called the FR1, and that was incorporated into the Hammond organs at the time. Which were the electronic organs at the time, and now they had this drum machine capability. In the 70s, Kakihashi founded the Roland Corporation and continued to develop his new versions of the drum machine until I believe it was in the 80s. He, along with the president of Sequential Circuits, Dave Smith, they both helped to invent MIDI, which is Musical Instrument Digital Interface, which basically every recording you ever hear now utilizes.
Yeah.
And it's in fact, even some of our bumps on this podcast utilize MIDI. So it's pretty incredible life he had, and he left his lasting mark on the world for sure.
Well, Mr. Kakihashi, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And rest in peace, my dude.
Yeah. Death wish you a happy birthday this week. On the day this podcast comes out, Thursday, April 6th. Michael Rooker is going to be 62, actor that I first saw in Days of Thunder as Tom Cruise's rival, but he's also widely known for his roles on The Walking Dead and also Guardians of the Galaxy and the upcoming Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Saturday, April 8th, the beautiful Robin Wright is going to be 51. She was the love interest from The Princess Bride. She was Forrest Gump's love interest, Jenny.
She's in House of Cards, right?
She was in House of Cards, too, yes. Sunday, April 9th, a very happy birthday to the Hef. Hugh Hefner. He's going to be 91 years old, still going strong.
I bet he gets a new smoking jacket every year.
Bet you he does, too. And Monday, April 10th, Star Wars star Daisy Ridley. She was Rey in The Force Awakens. She's going to be a baby, 25 years old on Monday, so happy birthday to her. We're going to take a short break and give you this week's D-Man update with some awesome news.
D-Man's Death Wish Update. Brought to you by Death Wish Coffee.
What do we got this week, D-Man?
If you're listening to us right now, we have available the brand new Death Wish coffee canister, the vacuum seal canister.
We talked about this last week on the podcast. It is finally available. We're very excited. Like I've said, probably every time we've brought this up, it's one of my favorite things in my kitchen.
Yeah, I use it every morning.
Yep.
I crack that thing open, make my coffee. It keeps it nice and fresh, and that way you can have the freshness of ordering bean coffee.
Yep.
But also the convenience of keeping it ground.
Yep.
So I like to just grind up a bunch for the week, put it in my vacuum sealed canister, close that thing down, and crack it open every morning.
Oh yeah, that's how you see. I open up my fresh bag of beans. I just pour it straight in the canister and just put them down. Yep.
Interesting.
I mean, whichever way works for you. It just keeps it fresh for you. It's awesome. And
multifunctional.
Yep, and this one's got the brand new logo on there and everything. So it looks really sleek
redesigned
and
by Thomas Dragonetti himself, and this little ditty is made by Planetary Design.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, D-Man, if we could talk about some company news that I know about.
Okay, so usually the D-Man Death Wish update is mostly stuff that we're releasing, but I like to give company news every once in a while, and because it's really great to get updated on the growth of the company.
And I mean, I'm just gonna say it. Some of our team, as we're recording this right now, is across the pond.
Yeah, so we're dividing and conquering.
Yes,
it's true. We're not only planning to move out to the West Coast and distribute and roast out there, which means you'll get your coffee faster on the West Coast, and we'll be able to keep our prices low, so we don't have to raise the price of the coffee ever. But we're also looking to get distribution and roasting out in the UK.
Yes.
So we will be on the other side of the pond roasting delicious Death Wish coffee for all the people who speak in funny accents.
We're learning how to grow at the rate that we're growing, and it's really exciting because you probably have heard us say that we're in a lot of Safeways on the West Coast now and in Hawaii, and we ship all over the world, and all of that's fulfilled right from us. You know, so I mean it'll only benefit everybody if we can start to branch out and kind of spread our wings a little bit.
And the thing specifically about the UK is that we do sell in Europe currently on Amazon Europe, but the prices are a little bit higher than we want them to be.
Yeah.
And so obviously it doesn't sell as well as it should. We don't want to do that, but we have to do it because of customs and all the shipping to get over there. So we're completely eliminating all that by roasting and distributing out in the UK.
Yeah, and we'll keep you all updated on that. I mean, this is the tip of the iceberg of this. Like I said, some of the team just flew out there today and are meeting with some of the awesome roasters out in London and the surrounding area.
There's a whole convention going on with all the roasters.
Yeah, there's a whole London coffee convention this weekend too. So,
so we'll find the very best one.
Hopefully, it's like speed dating for coffee roasters. Hopefully, we find that perfect match. That'll be great. And do we have any secrets?
I got a big secret.
Oh, boy.
So we've been teasing it a little bit. We weren't sure if we were going to do it or not. Because, the thing about Death Wish coffee is that we like to drink it black. We like to taste the coffee. We're not huge.
Black is the darkest night.
Exactly. And we're not huge advocates of creamers and whatnot, but we do understand that people like cream in their coffee.
Some people like cream in their coffee. It's okay.
But we're gonna make it available to you in the best way possible by making a creamer decanter for the mugs, and matching the mugs. And so on the 4th of July release for our 4th of July mug, which we talked about previously, we're going to be also selling the 4th of July creamer decanter.
Yeah, and that's really exciting. This is the only information you're getting because this is super secret. In fact, D-Man and myself just might lose our jobs for saying this out loud. We don't even know the logistics of it. If you'll be able to buy it in a bundle or I think
it's going to be a set.
It might be.
Did I say too much?
But we might not know. So we'll keep you updated. Obviously, it's months down the road. This is going to be the 4th of July release, but we're so excited. We just had to tell you guys right now.
And we'd like to make sure that you guys are ready. We're not surprising you too hard on. Really, you can start saving up now.
Yeah, definitely. And as always, tune back next week for some more secrets and some awesome news.
Cheers.
Welcome back to the show.
So this week, I still can't even fathom that we got the chance to talk to the incredible Nicole Stott.
We struck podcasting gold.
Yeah, and and it all just goes to show you, you just go out there and just try for it because the worst that can happen is no. I've always wanted to talk to an astronaut. Ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. And when we started this podcast, we had a short list of the white whales of who we wanted to ask the question, what fuels you? And one of them was an astronaut. And I started looking around, and I actually remember hearing about Nicole when she was up in space in 2009 because she was born in Albany.
Yep.
And I sought her out on the internet, and I just wrote her an email, and I was like, I don't know if this will even reach you or if you'll even think this is fun. And she wrote me back and was just like, that sounds like super fun. Let's talk.
Yeah, she's all about the coffee.
Yeah.
And she loves Death Wish now,
Yeah,
which is very cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. And man, this conversation, I got goosebumps the whole time just talking to her. It was so much fun.
Not only that, I feel like I learned so much.
Yeah.
You know, she's, and not just like hard knowledge, like more like a good approach to life,
Yeah.
a good way to be.
Totally.
She's got this fierceness, this
Yeah.
awesome, like really like fearlessness about her, but she's not like edgy. She's just happy and positive, and it was just so cool to talk to her.
It was so inspiring. So here it is, our interview with the artistic astronaut, Nicole Stott.
Mugs up.
The Fueled by Death guest.
Becoming an astronaut, like, was that something when you were a kid that you kind of wanted to do? Because I know you went to school for engineering, and then that track obviously led you to NASA and then into an astronaut. But was that something as like a dream as a child that you had?
It was, and it was a little later in life that I actually started thinking about the possibility of being an astronaut. I watched the first moon landing with my family. I have vivid memory of that and thinking how cool that was.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was I was little then, 7, whatever. And it didn't cross my mind that it could be real. You know, I thought it was really cool, but it just didn't even cross my mind that, wow, this is something you could do, Nikki, if you wanted to. And, or that there would even be the possibility. And that's not because anybody ever told me I couldn't do it. I never had that. It just didn't seem like a real thing for me. But I grew up, my dad flew airplanes and built small airplanes in our garage and out at the local airport growing up. So our family was out helping him or at the airport flying, the whole time I grew up. So I knew I wanted to do something with flying. And ultimately that turned into wanting to know how things fly, and which is why I chose aeronautical engineering to study. And then that turned in, if you were going to want to know how things fly, why wouldn't you want to know how rocket ships fly? And ended up with a job at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And it all went kind of from there. I ended up having some really great mentors at Kennedy, and they, when I started questioning, encouraged me to apply. And I don't think I would have done it without their encouragement, quite honestly.
That's awesome.
I never would have believed enough in anything I had done. Why would anything I'd done be something they'd want to pick as an astronaut? But, pinch myself every day.
That's so cool.
Very thankful. Very thankful to them.
And when you were at Kennedy Space Center, you held a variety of different positions, actually. And one of them that I was kind of curious about, it's listed that you were the orbiter project engineer for Columbia. What does that entail?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of titles and weird names and things about stuff, but basically what all of us were doing, whether we were, the organization was kind of broken up into operations and engineering. And when I first started there, I was in operations, and that was kind of the physical moving the vehicles around, getting things where they needed to be, the people, the tools, all of that stuff together to make sure that, once we landed, we got back to the launch pad safely and ready to launch again. And then somewhere along the way, I shifted over to engineering. And back in that day, ops people and the engineering people, and they would look at you weird if you moved from one group to the other. Why would you do that? And all I could think was, wow, in operations, I've moved to a couple positions, and it's been really interesting. Every time I've done something different within the same shuttle processing world, I'm learning something new and seeing something different. And I thought, why wouldn't I want to do that over in the engineering side too? And orbiter project engineer was basically kind of an interface to the ops people and to the logistics world and to the engineering world that was at Johnson Space Center too.
Okay.
And because the shuttle program was broken up across a couple of the different centers. And so it was more about what really and truly from an engineering side of things are we having to do as part of this whole plan to get the space shuttle ready to launch.
Wow.
And some of that was paperwork and some of it was down on the floor with the technicians working, side by side with them on the vehicle itself. And so very, I don't know, interesting is kind of a not good enough word.
Would you say fulfilling?
For what it's all about. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's one of I hope you guys feel this in what you're doing. I kind of sense the excitement through your website and the social media stuff and the fact that you're doing a podcast to do with, coffee as a product and stuff like that. And, when you work with people that are, on the one hand, have really great personality, it's fun to be there. Everybody's there because they love what they're doing. There's this passion, excitement about it.
Yeah.
And in the shuttle world, that's what it was like. I mean, these people were there because they felt like they were responsible for the care and feeding of the space shuttles and making sure that they were ready, safe to fly for the crews. And they were fun to work with, too. And then on the other hand, if it hits the fan, which it's probably going to do
Right.
somewhere along the way, I mean, you can usually count on that, or things aren't going to go exactly as you planned. When that happens, they are the most professional and ready to respond and take care of it kind of people that, that you can imagine. And I think I've been really fortunate with that, both when I was working as an engineer there and then, as an astronaut and flying on the shuttle. All of the things, that was the kind of thing that really made the place so cool and great to work.
That level of teamwork must be so exciting.
Exhilarating.
Yeah, we have that here definitely, but it must be some next level stuff when you're out in space and something goes wrong and then your teamwork kicks into like that next level. What is that like? Have you had like really scary moments up in space and everybody kicked into gear?
Well, what I think is neat is that they don't seem like really scary moments because down here on the ground, we've trained so well together for all of those things that we think we know could go wrong. The bulk of our training is responding to, ammonia leaking into the space station or a fire in space or some major system issue going wrong. And so you get all of this time working together as a crew and working with your ground team too, your ground support team, like the mission control folks and stuff, to figure out, okay, how are these people going to work together? And I really kind of wondered, we'd done all these things on the ground and to see how we work together that way. And then when an alarm went off in the middle of the night in space and you're floating out of your crew compartment at 3:00 in the morning and everybody's doing what you would expect them to do. Bob is going to the radio. Frank's making sure everybody's together. I'm pulling the procedure. To see that happen in this just very methodical, deliberate, professional kind of way was really refreshing.
Yeah, like
so it
second
works.
nature teamwork almost. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And
and all the training is, we do really fun training that's not just the fire starting in the space station, but we go live underwater for 18 days, in this habitat at 60 feet underwater and, basically do an analog mission to what it would be like living in space. And, or we're off in the frozen tundra of Russia, with the coldest winter in 100 years, doing winter survival things together. And so it's fun stuff too, where you're not just in a class or a simulator with things going wrong, but you're in a real mission environment as well where you don't know what's going to go wrong.
I wouldn't consider being underwater for 18 days fun, but that's just me.
It's awesome. It is the closest thing to flying in space. And you're not in the water for 18 days. You're in a habitat that's like the size of a school bus and it's, at it's actually at 60-foot pressure, so your voice changes a little bit, but you're walking around in regular clothes. But whenever we would go out and dive, like to do our surface exploration tasks and stuff, we would treat it just like a spacewalk. And we had folks on the surface that were our mission control, and to me, it was as close as I got in training to what it was like to live in space.
That's crazy. And that's the Nemo operation there that you were a part of. Is that still implemented today for training astronauts?
Yeah, absolutely. That's still going on. And it's the name of the habitat and the facility is Aquarius. And Florida International University is the group that runs that facility now. And they do other things too. They support the NASA missions with the Nemo stuff, but there's also, Navy divers come in and test out new equipment and things, and marine biologists and oceanographers use the facility as well. It's the only one on the planet like it.
That's incredible. And speaking on your training, I mean, you're training with your crew in Johnson Space Center and that kind of stuff, and with the Nemo. But I mean, it must have even been even more so because when you finally make it to the International Space Station, you're working with crews from Russia as well. So you must have had to train with Russia as well, correct?
Yeah, I would say for my first flight, it was about 3 years worth of training, and over 50% of that time was spent out of the country at our international partner facilities. And they do the same. They come to the U.S. as well to train. So we are training as an international crew.
That's
so
awesome.
It's not like you get to the space station and the Russians have to stay in the Russian module and
Right.
the U.S. folks are down, and the Europeans can only go in Columbus. I mean, it's not like that. You are a joint crew, and it's one of the coolest things about the whole program is that, I mean, we are doing really, cutting edge stuff with science and the facilities, the way we could live in space the way we do, the maintenance that we're doing, all of that. But I think in the end, the real, like what historically we'll think about when we think about the space station is the relationships that it allowed us to establish. And quite honestly, the way we do things both in space as a crew on the station, the way we work across programs on the ground, and then the way we communicate with each other between the ground and in space, it is the best example for how we should be doing stuff down here. Just globally, how we should be doing stuff down here. Really and truly is.
And and I'm inspired by that, and I think that's such an inspiring thing. Is the International Space Station? I've grown up in the era of the heyday of that, and it is such a microcosm of exactly like you said of how everything should work. You know, and it's so inspiring to hear you say that too.
Just look at what they're able to achieve by just working together in that way. That's really, really cool.
So you went up
there. It's great. Go ahead.
No, you go. You go.
Well, I know. I mean, I was just going to say that I love that you guys are aware too. I mean, part of as a retired astronaut now, I think everybody that leaves the office and goes on to something new, like a new adventure, whatever that's going to be. I mean, for me, that's based on art and, sharing the experience through my artwork and communicating with audiences that might not even know we have a space station. And there are a lot of people out there that don't know that we have for the past 16 years. I mean, as long as my son has been alive, we have been living peacefully, successfully, quietly, even, off our planet for 16 years. People circling every 90 minutes on that space station. And that's a pretty impressive thing.
It really
especially
is.
With, like we said, the relationships that made that happen, not to mention the technology that has been developed to allow that to happen, but also that everything we're doing up there, it's helping us explore, live in space and off our planet, but it is ultimately about improving life here on Earth.
Yes.
And that's a pretty cool thing.
It's amazing.
It really is. And for the last, I don't know, handful of years with smartphone technology and stuff like that, I have an app on my phone that tells me every time the space station goes over my head, and I always wave because it's always cool to be able to see it as it's going. So you went up there.
When you think about people up there, that's pretty impressive.
It really is.
Yeah.
It blows that little dot of light has 6 people from around the world on it.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so you went up there for the first time.
So ask your question. I keep interrupting you.
Oh, no.
It's okay.
In 2009 is when you went up there for the first time. And here's a question I've always wanted to ask. How long does it actually take from liftoff on the ground to actually get to the space station?
Well, to get to the space station, when we flew on the Space Shuttle, it was about 2 days. But that's because we planned the whole, chasing down the space station that way.
Right,
and we did it deliberately. We could have gotten there quicker. I mean, the orbital mechanics of it all would allow you to get there quicker. In fact, our Soyuz, our Russian partners with the Soyuz spacecraft, they do what they call a 4-orbit rendezvous now. And basically 6 hours from the time you launch to when you're docked with the space station.
Wow.
And they used to do the 2-day thing as well. But the importance of the 2-day thing was get to orbit, which only takes 8.5 minutes on the shuttle.
Wow.
We launched in 8.5 minutes, you're circling Earth.
Whoa.
And then the point was to, very deliberately on a path, chase down the station. And along the way, you would open up your payload bay doors and make sure that, that those systems were working. Deploy the big antenna and make sure all the communications were working. Yeah. So do a very thorough checkout of the space shuttle before you docked it to another piece of big hardware in space.
Seems like a really good idea.
Yeah.
It is. And it gives you a little time to adapt to where you are and get to know the shuttle, or, a little bit better before you're docked with the station. And, yeah. And then on the way home, you could undock and be home in an hour if you wanted to, but,
wow.
Why would you want to come home that quickly?
Right. Yeah. No way.
So wait, how long did it take to come back then for you?
Well, we undock from the station, and then there's usually about a day before you close the payload bay doors and then burn the engines to come back into the atmosphere. So it was typically about a day, but I think on my first flight, I think on both flights, we delayed a day coming home for weather at KSC, and so had an extra day in space because of that, which, none of us looked at each other and complained about that at all.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome.
I got to ask, too, you were one of the last crew members to actually come back on the space shuttle. Is it a little scary coming in and on a space shuttle? Like, I mean, we see it romanticized in Hollywood movies and stuff like that, but like in real life, is it? What is it like to come back into
I'm scared.
Yeah, into the atmosphere?
My palms are sweaty. It doesn't take much, but that's it, man.
And now, the space shuttle. What was the space shuttle? I hope we figure out how to do something as beautiful as the space shuttle again. The space shuttle launched from a launch pad and glided in to landing on the runway. And, the launch on the shuttle was really dynamic. I mean, more than I, after watching launches for years working out there, ever imagined. I mean, I thought it was going to be like here, and, I can't even stretch my arm high enough for how, your body is like jello shaking on the way up. And, but it's outstanding. And, just a little detour here, but on launch, nothing prepares you for it, I don't think. And then you do it again thinking, been there, done that. And it's like a whole new experience all over again. And I don't know if our engineers who designed the shuttle did this deliberately or not, but in about the first minute and a half, there's not a whole lot the crew can do, about anything. You monitor systems. There's, some things, immediate switches you could throw and stuff. But for the most part, you're in monitor mode. And I think that was such a good thing, because that first minute and a half, it goes by so quickly. And the whole time you're just like, the smile is across your face inside the helmet. You're high-fiving with the guy next to you. woohooing and stuff, because I think it just drives it out of you. It's about, talk about human experience.
Oh,
it just comes out of you then. And so that's really dynamic on the shuttle. The landing on a space shuttle was like graceful and peaceful and yeah, and it was almost kind of this contrast because, once you start entering the atmosphere, and if you could get a view out a window, you're seeing that heat and, some of the plasma kind of moving across the vehicle that you're like, oh, wow, it is really hot out there. And, you're going super fast. But it just was inside, just a little bit of a rumble every now and then, but no dynamics at all, like launch. And then when you land, it's just this circling kind of S-turn and spiral into the runway, and you're gliding. You're not even on engines anymore.
Wow.
The key there is you got one, it's one time you land, you're not going around. And it was just this, little screechy noise on the runway, and then you're home. It was so mellow. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
The thing that's most inspiring about you for me is that you have this perfect dichotomy of like cheerfulness and positivity teamed up with like a bold and fearlessness. Where do you get that from? That's amazing.
I don't know. My mom and dad both very cool, and I think the opportunity to be out there, that my parents shared what they were excited about with us was, I think, a really huge thing. We're trying to do that with my son as well. In fact, like when I flew the first time, that 3 years of training, he was 7 when I flew the first time. And so this kid, his whole life has been, mom traveling back and forth to other countries and trying to take him when I could and getting him out to whatever, if we were doing training where you're in the orange suits or the big white suit or in a simulator, I tried to get him to as much of that as possible. So he was part of the crew. And that's the way I felt with my family. I felt like I was part of the crew, and if somebody enjoyed something, they shared it with you. And I think that kind of gets in your blood that way. And very thankful to my dad for the passion he had for flying. My gosh, I don't know. I hope that I would have found that some other way, but I don't know if I would have or not.
Would you call yourself an adrenaline junkie?
No. I don't know, I don't know. There's certain things that I think I like doing that other people think like, holy moly, why would you ever do that?
Yeah.
But put me at the edge of a cliff or drive me on one of those roads in Europe where there's no railing and, I just, over the Skyway Bridge, I really don't want anything to do with it. There's particular things, I guess.
Okay.
But
that's surprising.
Yeah, that's a little surprising. You have been to space.
Well, everybody says that. How can you be afraid of heights if you've been to space? You did a spacewalk. How can you be afraid of heights and things? It is totally different.
Yeah.
It is totally different. And maybe it's a naive trust in your equipment or something. I don't know. But standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon with no protection, nothing is very different to me to going out on a spacewalk in a spacesuit that's designed to protect you.
Right.
Do you think that's because you were on part of the engineering operational logistics side that you were able to put that trust in your equipment?
When it came down to flying on the shuttle, actually going out there, strapping in and launching, I had, total confidence in the team that had put that vehicle together.
Yep.
And that's not to say that there's not risk associated with it, because we all know there is. That's not to say that there's something that was not humanly possible for them to deal with or that got missed, because we are human beings doing this.
Yeah.
But to the best degree possible, I knew that those folks were doing what they could to make this a safe vehicle. And so that was definitely part of the comfort zone. And when people ask me, was I scared? Was I afraid to go launch on the shuttle? I'm like, no, it wasn't. It wasn't fear. It wasn't being afraid. I was anxious. I want to know what this is. I've been training for a long time to do this. I know the people that worked on this vehicle, And I am anxious to see what it's going to feel like and to get up there and do work that I believe is important as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. And one of the questions we had actually from another one of our employees, which I thought was pretty funny, with all the, all the different operations on the shuttle and all the bells and whistles and everything when you're getting up to the space station. Our buddy John here wanted me to ask you: does the shuttle have a horn? Can you beep at the space station when you get up there?
Well, you could, but I don't know if that sound would travel through space in a way that would make it to them. But we do have it. It's a good question though, because
no, it's not.
It is over our comm. We're alerting them in some way the entire time we're approaching.
Yeah.
And then, kind of in line with that, it wasn't a horn, but you know how the Navy on ships has this when an officer is arriving or departing, they have this bell they ring, or when another ship is departing or arriving, they have this bell they ring. We have one of those bells on the space station. And so when the shuttle or any vehicle would dock and, a crew would be ready to come on board, they would ring the bell to announce that you were arriving. And then after we'd undock, they would ring the bell and go through this kind of ceremonial, traditional, just departure thing to say, hey, safe trip home.
That's so cool.
Space Shuttle Discovery departing. Yeah.
How often were people coming in and out?
It's not that often. I probably in the every 3 to 6 month timing. With shuttle, it was probably about every 3 to 6 months. With us not flying shuttle now, and the Soyuz being the vehicle that's getting us to and from station, that's actually timing's about the same, I guess, because we rotate crews. They're usually up there from like a 4 to 6 month mission, and so we're overlapping and rotating crews throughout, but probably 3 months for people showing up.
Wow. And you were up there your first time for just over 3 months. And you were saying that the space station, actually goes around the Earth every 90 minutes. Do the days kind of blend together? Like, I've always wondered, is living in the space station, what it's like to, go to sleep.
Yeah, sleeping must be so weird.
Is that tough to get used to?
Sleeping is outstanding, because on the space station, each of us have our own personal crew compartments about the size of a phone booth. And it is the best sleep I've ever had in my entire life. Quite honestly, it's, you stick your sleeping bag up on the wall and you float into it, and there's literally there's no pressure points. You're not having to roll around to get comfortable and stuff. And it really was the first couple nights in space are a little difficult because you just don't know your body doesn't know how to respond to that almost.
Yeah.
And when you get to the microgravity environment, there's no load, no gravity pulling your own body down anymore. So your spine elongates a little bit. And so I grew a little over an inch while I was there, just because your spine completely offloads.
Wow.
And that hurts a little bit. It's like lower back pain.
Yeah.
So, you're trying to get, just like down here, you're trying to get comfortable when your back hurts, to sleep.
Yeah.
But then it just goes away. It's just gone.
Wow.
And it is the most, I would get in my sleeping bag, shut the door, turn, do a little Sudoku puzzle for, a couple minutes or something, stick it back on the wall, turn the light off. And I think within 5 minutes every night I was asleep. And I did not, I woke up in the same position to the alarm, whether that was a, emergency alarm or the alarm on my watch going off to tell me it was time to get up. It was so comfortable.
You must have had the most crazy dreams up in space.
They change. They do change. I found, and they changed for me down here after getting back too.
Wow.
I found that before I flew, I used to have these dreams all the time. And I remember as a kid too, having these dreams where, you kind of run and jump to fly, just to be able to fly on your own. And sometimes I could, and sometimes I couldn't in my dreams. And I don't know, there's probably some psychology to that of, struggling with something or whatever. If you couldn't get, or a test you're going to fail, I don't know.
Right.
But in space, I never had those dreams. And dreaming started to incorporate things that were happening in space too, those activities, that feeling, floating, all of that. And then since coming home, I've never had that run and jump dream anymore.
You're free now.
I've never.
No more tests.
Yes. But I think it's because maybe it's because your body knows, your brain knows what it feels like to do that and doesn't have to, fight it anymore.
Did you use like flotation tanks for training at all? It sounds like that would be useful.
Well, for spacewalks, we use this ginormous pool in Houston. There's this pool called the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, and it's like 100 feet wide, 200 feet long, and 40 feet deep. And it's got a full mock-up of the space station in it. And it's not, and they can't lay it out in the same configuration as the station, but they have all of the pieces are in there. So you get into the same big 300-pound white suit and get into the pool, and they get you as neutrally buoyant as possible. And you go through that whole same 6.5-hour spacewalk there like you would if you were in space.
Wow.
But it's just a lot harder in the pool in space. And so that's really the only like buoyancy training that we do. A couple times during your training, you'll get to fly on the zero-G airplane, the Vomit Comet.
Yeah.
To see just what it feels like to float. That though really doesn't give you any indication of how you will feel when you get to space.
Yeah,
it's
I imagine not.
Little the bursts.
Right.
And, but it's cool to do it. And
that's cool.
Just,
but so you were up there, and I mean, I can't imagine being able to look upon the Earth from that vantage point. Was there any I don't know, part of the Earth that was more beautiful than the other? Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of your photos and stuff like that, but like anything that you think back on where it's just like, I can't believe I got to see this point of the Earth from this vantage point kind of thing? Yeah,
and I'll tell you, the Earth is stunning. Before you go from the pictures and videos that it is going to be, there's no doubt. I mean, you don't have any question about whether it's going to be pretty looking out the window. But it's kind of like that launch thing, here versus, here with what it really is. And it just glows. It's like you've taken a light bulb and just painted it with all the colors that Earth is. And it's just crystal clear, glows like that. And for me, and I think, and I actually behind my Skype screen here, I have the picture. It's like the horizon of the planet with Florida and then the Bahamas and all that tropical water there. And I really think, even though I'm a Florida girl, where, I might have a little bit of a prejudice towards Florida being the most beautiful, I can tell you that water and that whole stretch of the planet from the southern tip of Florida to the northern coast of South America, as a single place is probably the most beautiful place on Earth. But you can't, every place you look, there's a surprise that's interesting. There's this little tiny heart island in the Red Sea this naturally shaped heart island out there. And, these expanses of salt lakes in Australia that look like pink. They just look like a George O'Keeffe painting almost, like they painted pink flowers on the ground. And, it's just the patterns of the dunes and the Sahara that look like bird prints, bird footprints across the earth. It's just incredible. And I think, to me, I just remember looking out the window thinking, God must have a really wonderful sense of humor because, all these things, it's like, why are they there? Why is there a little heart-shaped island out in the middle of the Red Sea? Naturally, there's a lot of man-made Palm Island and all that stuff that's man-made. But, these are naturally occurring things that you look out and you're like, wow, it's like it's meant to be there for us to discover it. And, that was pretty cool to me because every time you'd look out the window, there'd be something like that. Even if you were looking at the same place, there was something surprising about it, whether it was the way the clouds were, or if it was night versus day, all of that kind of thing that just, I can't imagine us ever getting to the point where we're pulling the shade down on the space station to, watch the movie or something. It's
wow, that's so
cool.
Cool.
Why would you not want to look out the window?
Yeah. And that kind of leads me into my next question. You are the first person to paint in space. and painting from what you saw and things. What is that like? I'm really curious. Like, what kind of paint did you use, and how does it stick to the canvas in microgravity? Like, how does that work?
It was really fun, and I always put a shout out to my crew member Bob Thirsk, because he took the one and only picture I have of painting in space.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish, I'll tell you, if I were to go back, I would take that watercolor kit again, or I'd find it, because I didn't bring it home with me, and do it again and videotape what it was like to work with the water and the paint, and how you had to organize yourself, because everything floats away.
Yeah.
So you gotta have Velcro on everything and be really organized about it. But I didn't do that, so I do try to describe it. But it was really fun, and I think in the end it turned out like most things up there. They're different than the way you have to do it down here, and that's like everything. Going to the bathroom, leveraging yourself, working on things. It's different, but it's not necessarily more difficult than it is down here. And to me, that's all part of the adventure. Why would you want it to be all exactly like what you do down here when you're in space,
It seems like it would be more difficult. That's surprising.
It was interesting, because, you just can't have a bowl of water to brush in, but it could have been a really cool, like, science demonstration too, just to show the characteristics of like surface tension and and viscosity and things like that while you're painting, because the brush, I would squirt out of my drink bag. We have these like Capri Sun kind of bags with a straw and a little valve on the end, and so you could squirt out just this tiny little ball of water, and then take the brush and you just touch the tip of the brush into the water and it just sucks it like right into the brush.
Weird.
And then I remember looking at the tip of the brush, and it was like, normally down here, it's like just a glob of water that's all mixed in with the brush. You don't really notice any difference. But up there, you could see almost this ball of water just floating around the bristles of the brush. And then I had the watercolor kit I had was just one of those little ones with the hard paints, like a kid's kit.
Yeah.
That's what I was imagining.
So and so I just took the water, mushed it around on the paint, the hard paint, and then it would, as soon as I started to pull the brush away, it would suck that colored water into the brush again. And then I had watercolor paper, and it was like the same thing. It's like the paper wanted it then. As soon as you touched the brush to the paper would suck it up onto the thing.
That sounds so satisfying.
It was really neat. It was really neat. Yeah. Yeah. And it was totally surprising to me that I was the first person to paint in space. I mean, it never crossed my mind when I went up there. Somebody told me afterwards. I'm like, really? Seriously? How can that be? Because we've had people play musical instruments up there. Yeah. We have people, really very talented photographers doing different things with, the pictures that they're taking. And we had Alexei Leonov, one of the first Russian cosmonauts, was the first person to draw in space. He took colored pencils and drew like an orbital sunrise. And then he sketched all of his crew members, that he was up there with. But so to think that nobody else had painted before was really very surprising to me. Very surprising.
So, you've spent all this time in space. You've been up there 2 times to the International Space Station, and kind of the veil has been lifted because you are an astronaut. You know the ins and outs of all that stuff. And I kind of wanted to ask you the question, does it cheapen science fiction for you now? I brought up before, like the Hollywood blockbusters, like, Gravity or Interstellar or something like that. Do you watch those now and just are like, that's not how it works?
I can't imagine that anybody who's has any particular expertise in something when they watch a Hollywood version of it. I think there's always the critique of,
right.
We would never do that.
Kind of like
science doesn't. Science doesn't work that way.
Kind of like an actual martial artist watching a kung fu movie.
And
then
they're being so unsafe. We would never do that. And so there's some of that goes into it. But I try to watch. My husband is the hugest sci-fi fan that you can imagine, and I mean, from the enjoying watching it, reading it, to the history of sci-fi. I mean, all of it. I mean, he is a guy when it comes to that stuff. And so I don't even scratch the surface of that. I mean, I like going, to the movies and reading the books, but
you just go to actual space instead of read about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could say I could go again. Ask me when I'm 95. I do want to go to space, so maybe I can become independently wealthy somehow and pay for the ride now. That would be good. Yeah.
I've always actually kind of wanted to ask this question of an astronaut as well, and this might be a little existential, but do you think we're alone in the universe?
I don't know. I'm not opposed to us not being alone in the universe. I think there's plenty of opportunity for us to not be alone in the universe. I felt like when I flew, and this might be a long answer to this question, but before I flew, I remember reading things and hearing things from earlier astronauts, like the Apollo guys, who, I mean, my goodness, they got to see the whole planet.
Oh yeah.
Out there, and some of the words that were used were like, in describing, I think, the size of where we are, this sense of insignificance, and that always bothered me. I mean, I remember thinking, man, I really hope they mean that they're humbled, they're in awe. It was like this thing that was so impressive. You feel like maybe you're just this tiny speck in it all. And I remember getting to space, seeing Earth for the first time, and thinking, okay, that is not the word. There is total significance to us and why we're here. And that's whether you believe, like I do, that there is, I am a person of faith. I believe in God. I think there is a tie into that, and why we are placed where we are, why those things are out there for us to see and discover, a little bit closer, a little further from the sun, not so good for us,
Right.
All that kind of, to me, which is totally significant.
Yeah.
And I don't care how small we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
And so for us to be from a size, again, size not all that important, but for us to be so small in this universe, and to be so perfectly placed and on a planet that is just designed to take care of us, why can't that be possible somewhere else? I really think there's total possibility to it. And while I didn't see anything that said, there's the little green guys flying, down and around with us, or coming to see, I didn't see any indication of that kind of thing when I looked out the window. But I can tell you from a, kind of almost, I don't even know the word, soulful, human kind of perspective, it makes you think, wow, the total possibility that we are not the only ones out here in this huge space.
So cool.
You have such awesome perspective in life. And how much do you think of that was from being out in space? Do you feel like you came back a different person?
I feel like I came back with perhaps a new appreciation. Certainly, I don't know how you can experience what I was blessed to experience. I don't know how you can look through the window at where we live, and I mean, you look down and you're like, holy moly, I'm in space on a space station, but we are in space on a planet. This is not, all of us are essentially crew members on Earth. And I think what it did for me was it was a more of an appreciation for kind of the unifying, connective things. It's another one of those deals where a lot of times when you separate yourself from something, you see it a little bit more clearly, or from a different way that gets you appreciating it differently. And I think that's what went on. I think I have a better understanding of the word awe.
Yeah.
I mean, I use that word a lot. Awesome. That's awesome. But I really think when you talk about that aspect of it, this looking at Earth in a totally new way, that is awesome. It's really awesome.
That is awesome. So, you started off, in the operations side, and then you became an astronaut, and now you're retired and you're doing all these really interesting things. What fuels you to keep, doing what you do, to keep, going out there and being so positive? Like, what fuels you to do that?
Well, I think at the core of it is inspiration. I feel like I've been inspired every step of the way. And I don't think when you're in the middle of it, you even necessarily know what's inspiring you. I mean, as a kid growing up with my family hanging out at the airport, I was just having fun. I didn't know that was going to be this big, kind of push in my life towards something that ended up being, for me, incredible. I mean, what I would probably think of as impossible. I second guessed myself all along the way. Why would they want me to do this? But there was underlying it was, inspiration coming from many different places. And I think that for me, I've just built on that throughout my life. What is inspiring me? And, if anybody goes to space and is not inspired by what they experience, then there's something wrong with them.
Yeah,
I mean, there really and truly is something wrong with them. And I feel obligated to share that experience. And if I can do that through my artwork, if I can do that through connecting with kids that are in treatment at cancer centers and get them doing things, if I can talk to you guys and use your platform to help share that, how can that not be something that's fueling you, and I want people to know about what we're doing in space. I want them to know that it's all about improving life here on Earth, and I want them to know that we are doing that not just as, 6 people from the United States on that space station, but as 6 people that represent a global community. And there is plenty of opportunity for us to use that same model in other ways and all ways down here.
Well, you are such an inspiration.
Yeah, I'm so moved. I really am.
Yeah.
It's amazing to talk to you.
And I want to talk a little bit about your transition. You retired from NASA in 2015, and since then, you've done so much. You like you said, with your art, and you've started a couple charity organizations as well. I just want to talk about like what you're doing now. Like do you do a lot of public speaking? Do you do a lot of that kind of thing? Like a lot of appearances and stuff?
Yeah, I try to do. I'm just now really getting out into the speaker thing. I've never done. We do that as part of our astronaut job. We get out to a lot of places and speak to a lot of different people. And I think what's so neat about it is that you can take the story of training to be an astronaut, flying in space, working as part of the ground team or the in-flight team, and all about the program, and you can really map that to pretty much anything. And that's whether it's, kindergartners that you're talking to about what the space station even is, to professional organizations that are trying to do team building activities, or they're changing their leadership structure or something. I mean, there's the extremes that you can very nicely map the story of training and flying in space to. And so the speaking thing is fun.
Yeah.
Because you meet a lot of different people that are doing a lot of different things. And in the background, I can be, achieving my mission of spreading that word about what we're doing in space to improve life down here on Earth. But I think one example of something that I participated in since retiring that I really think is probably the most meaningful thing I've ever supported is this thing called the Spacesuit Art Project. And I don't know if you guys read about that at all or saw anything about it.
I saw very briefly about it, but I was hoping you'd talk about it. Yeah.
Well, really cool. And I feel like it's one of these things, where you kind of move through your life and you're put in particular places that then allow you the opportunity to be invited to participate in other really cool things. And this is one of those, to me, where I think my whole time getting ready to and flying in space and having kind of this artistic thing in the background put me in a position to be able to support this spacesuit art project. And it really started as the idea of another artist, Ian Sion, who I call the artistic genius behind this because he really is. He was the founder and director of the Arts and Medicine program at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston.
Okay.
And worked in the pediatric cancer center there. And he had always done these really neat projects where he would have the kids do some small piece of art, and then he would build it and then with their help into some really like large format piece of art. So, and his idea was that, yeah, these kids could do art and then hang it in their hospital room, or mom could take it home and stick it on the wall. But the point of it was, first of all, they're coming together, as a community there in the hospital, painting together, and then taking those pieces of art and putting them into something that's bigger than just their individual, painting or drawing.
Wow.
And he came to NASA with the idea. First of all, he thought it would be really cool to be an artist in residence on the space station, which I totally agree with him. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
But we had to talk him down a little bit, and it came down to spacesuits. Why spacesuits are cool to everybody?
Yeah.
Kids really dig spacesuits. I really like spacesuits, and why not take the artwork and do something with spacesuits? And so he had the kids at MD Anderson paint all these little paintings, and then we got our real spacesuit company, ILC Dover, tied in, and they quilted all of these individual canvases into a spacesuit to the same pattern that we used to build the real spacesuits. And that first suit was called Hope, and that was just the MD Anderson kids. And then we thought, maybe we can get one of these suits up to the space station. And the NASA guys at Johnson Space Center were very supportive, in the ISS program office. We knew we wouldn't be able to get one of the big suits up there, so we had the kids paint right on a flight suit, like you would wear in a jet or something. And they painted right onto it, and that suit is called Courage, and we just got it back from the space station. We sent it up. It went up there. One of our astronauts, Kate Rubens, she wore it while she was up there, and we did this live video conference with the kids and mission control.
That's so cool.
It was so cool. It was like I was doing kind of the emceeing for the event, the liaise thing. And when Kate came up on the screen in this suit, and I can send you guys some pictures of this, it was so cool. She comes up on the screen, and it was like, all I could think to say to her is like, we are having our first art exhibit in space.
Yeah.
Because these colors, inside the space station, I think it's a really cool place, but it's white and grays and cables, and there's not a lot of color there. And it was just so stunning to see this on the screen. And so we got the Courage suit back, and then in parallel with that, we wanted to do something that was more global, that was more modeled after what we're doing with the relationships on the space station. And so Ian and I traveled to all of the headquarters cities for the different station partner countries. And we painted with kids in the hospitals it was like Cologne, Germany, Tsukuba, Japan, Moscow, Russia, and Montreal, Canada. And I had some of my, pulled in my network of astronaut and cosmonaut friends to come paint with us, and the kids too. And we brought all that artwork back, and ILC Dover quilted it into a third suit called Unity. So it's really neat. So you've got Hope, Courage, and Unity, and the parallels between, sadly, what these kids are going through and what I hope is the most difficult thing they ever have to deal with in their entire lives in this treatment. They're part of this much bigger thing now, and they're part of it not just locally in their own hospital, but around the world. And I get goosebumps. I've got them.
You're giving me goosebumps.
And it's such a great thing. And so now we're figuring out, okay, what is phase 2 with these suits? Because I think the momentum has been so good with it. Anybody who's seen it or participated in it is like, what can I do? How can we help? And we're trying very hard right now to figure out what is that mechanism that we can put in place to allow, people to donate to it if they want, and, keep it going. And we really think there's opportunity for, facilitating other artists to do things like this in other hospitals or other places where you can see this really great positive tie between art and science. And in this case, it's art and medicine, art and healing. And, you know, there's a real power in that. And so if we can help facilitate that in other places around the world, that would be awesome. If we could get some research to station that's, you know, kind of targeting this area, that would be awesome. I think there's just so many things that could spin off from this that are good things that we need to keep it going.
Yeah. So how do people find out more about you and the Spacesuit Art Project? How do they find you on the internet? How do they
Connect.
be a part of this Spacesuit Art Project as well?
Well, my website is theartisticastronaut.com, and there's some information there. You can find me on Facebook under that same thing, and I'm on Instagram and Twitter with that as well. And then the Spacesuit Art Project has a Facebook and Twitter handle as well, so you can find it there. And yeah, where else can we go? I think those are the two main places. And I'm going to try, since we are in kind of this transition stage with the project, I want to use my site to kind of showcase it a little bit more too, and get the word out. But it's a beautiful thing.
It really is. Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. So I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us on the podcast. You're such an inspiration, and you know what you're doing for the world is just it's awe-inspiring. It's
incredible.
Awesome. To use your
it really
word.
Is awesome.
It really is.
Well, thanks. I mean, I appreciate you guys. I really do appreciate you guys reaching out. I love that there's the local, you know, where I was born, my family connection there. And I love seeing what I like to, maybe hopefully you guys think about like homegrown kinds of things like this, what you guys are doing that is much bigger than just coffee.
Yeah.
You know, it is much bigger than coffee, and it's a very good thing. And I can tell you, while the space thing and all of that is my inspiration and what fuels me, this is fueling me now too. So
awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
This has been Fueled by Deathcast, a Death Wish Coffee Company podcast production. Thanks for listening.